Hello, welcome again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Bob Scarborough.
And we are the FAIRtax Guys.
I'm going to get a little plane and hang it from the ceiling. You remember those little planes that you had on a string that you could fly around? Anyway, I had one.
I do.
And I'm
How do you like my new toy?
This one behind it, so it's constantly just doing around like this.
Yeah, well, I told you if you get a real one and a real airplane, I can fly that for you.
Well, I know that. That's what I think we need. We need a banner plane showing up at the beach. Any
new gear ball here. How's this?
Is that a new one?
This is more income tax insanity, as illustrated by a kid's toy here.
I love it.
That works.
You've got them all. You must have the biggest collection, I would think. Is there anybody that has more of those than you do?
Oh, I'm sure there is somewhere, but I got a pretty good stack of mostly Rubik's cubes and then a few things that are similar.
I love it.
I still like the two by.
Yeah, that's the IRS in a very small area.
Well, we're going to be talking about this a bit later on today's episode, but it's always moving, it's always changing, and one little change here affects the entire tax code. And it's just a mutt mess and a half, and we the people have got to stand up to them, the politicians, and tell them we've had enough of this income tax system. We want to replace it with a fair tax, a nice, simple, easy system that's included in the prices of the goods and services you buy. You pay it honestly, no income tax returns, no complexity of any kind. And if there's any liability for somebody not doing it right, it's the vendor, it's not the individual. So
I'm going to tell you, and I think we've talked about this before.
Go right ahead.
Politicians, once they get up there and get inoculated, as Barney Fife used to say, once they get in the system up there, they're drugged. They're open. The bag of sugar's open in front of them, and they've been fed the bag of sugar contents, and we end up with good people that are saying, "Hey, I'm really going up there. I'm going to change Washington." And then all of a sudden they're just caught in lockstep with everything else.
Yeah,
and it has to do with the system that they're under. We talk about it on the show all the time. We use examples from congress.gov every week, thereabout, give or take. And basically it's one day everybody's going to wake up and go, this is sheer tyranny.
It's basically the leadership in both parties.
Yeah,
they'll tell these freshman representatives, these are the rules, you'll play by them or else you're out of the game. We don't help you with your reelection. You don't get on any choice committees. If you don't play by our rules, then you're basically out of the game. And they say, okay, so.
And people say to me, they go, Bob, we need we need term limits. And I do believe that we need that, but we do have a sort of a term limit in the election cycle, in going to the polls and voting, but we have to go vote. You have to go vote. That's
until you realize the percentage of incumbents that get reelected. And you say that's really okay.
And I understand. I understand the I understand the dollars. I understand the you have to get reelected, but at some point in time, the foot has got to go in the stream and stop this madness. And now, if you can look over there and you can see that Mr. Paxton is rubbing his hands together, it's not because it's cold where he is. He's on Gilligan's Island over there, it looks like.
Yes, I've come back from my Alaska glacier, and I'm now on my Florida beach. But
it's now time for today's Congress.gov.
We have some goodies in Congress.gov again. This is a segment we do on FAIRtax Power Radio every time, or just about every time, unless we've got a guest or something special we do, because we like to keep an eye on what the Congress critters are trying to do to the tax code, simply to illustrate how crazy a system we've got that allows this kind of stuff to go on. And right at the top of the list, our lead off today is HR 9338, a bill to amend the Internal Revenue Code to require fairness and diversity in opportunity zone investments, and to require minimum investment in controlled environment agriculture. Got that?
I'll have to get back to you on that one.
Want me to read it again? That says to
Oh, it
require.
takes too long. The show will be over by the time you finish reading that again. Who
Okay,
writes this stuff? Do they have staff members that have all they do like they open like the copy paste section of the
Oh, I imagine they do. This is Representative Henry Hank Johnson from Georgia District 4 that introduced this one, HR 9338. There's a companion bill, S5126. It says basically the same thing. But anytime you see a bill to require fairness, you just got to say, wait a minute. Take that with a grain of salt, if you would, because that's about what it's worth.
We
So,
the people allowed in 1913 for the 16th Amendment to be enacted, and by a majority of the states. What was it? 34 states have to say yes.
34 now, yes. Three-quarters have to do that to enact a constitutional
Back then, it was a
amendment.
little less. But we're the ones that put ourselves in this box, and we're the ones that can get ourselves out of the box, or it's a night in the box.
Yes. Well, let's move on to number 2, HR 9331, 9331. Now, just the title of this one caught my eye. The ED Access Act of 2022. So, wait a minute. Are they talking about what it sounds like they're talking about
heard
here?
These commercials before, and this is a family-friendly show, so we might have to bleep out whatever he's going to say next. But I doubt.
No, actually, not really, because that does not stand
know,
for what you think it does. This is a bill to amend the Internal Revenue Code to strike the provision of the American Opportunity Tax Credit that denies the credit to students with felony drug convictions. In other words, it wants to make students with felony drug convictions eligible for this opportunity tax credit. Now, how crazy is that?
It's insane. And of course, we talk about these things like every week, and it all ends up pointing to the very same thing, which is, why are we using the tax code to bring about legislation? Why is it done that way? And this is one example of, I mean, everything's supposed to be fair and equal. We're all supposed to be treated equally, et cetera.
Yes, well, just for your edification here, to make sure that everyone understands, in this case, ED stands for eliminating discrimination. That's what the ED in this bill stands for, the ED access, eliminating discrimination. We're not going to discriminate against people or students who have felony drug convictions. We're just going to go ahead and still make them eligible for the American Opportunity Tax Credit. Does any other country in the world have a tax code with that kind of stuff in it? I don't know. There may be, because I'm not super familiar with anybody else's tax codes. But that's what that one is.
The ones you go over are the the cream of the crop, so to speak.
Yes.
All eligible for the Hall of Shame, which is coming up very soon, by the way.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I was looking at the calendar the other day. The one that we're recording right now, which is actually, we're recording this on the day after Thanksgiving. It's going to stream the following Tuesday, the 28th. We'll do another one later this afternoon. It'll stream the following Tuesday, and there'll be 3 shows left in December beyond that one. The last of which I believe is the 27th, we will go over the entire 2022 tax reform Hall of Shame, and there are some goodies in there. There really are.
We've picked them up. We take the cream of the crop and put them in this basket at the end of the year to show you the lunacy in our tax code. Courtesy of the people that we elect to go to Washington.
So we need to elect people who will get rid of that lunacy and replace the income tax system with the fair tax. A very simple system. You pay it when you buy things. End of story. Okay, let's move on a little bit. This is S5125, S5125, the Family Attribution Modernization Act. Now you look at that and you say, what in the world does that have to do with the tax code?
The Attribution Modernization Act.
Yeah, this is the Family Attribution Modernization Act. Now, I will have to claim ignorance here and not know what family attribution means. I didn't have a chance to look that up before I got into this.
You keep talking. I'll go to this computer right here in front of you.
Well, I will tell you that you open up the text. This one actually has some text with it. And it says it's to amend the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 to reform the application of family attribution rules for the purposes of retirement plans. Got that? To amend the Internal Revenue Code to reform the application of family attribution rules for the purposes of retirement plans. So apparently our tax code contains something called family attribution rules, and it has to do with retirement plans.
And once an individual is attributed ownership from a family member, that interest cannot be attributed again from the individual to another family member. For example, if a daughter is attributed her father's ownership interest in a company, her spouse can't be attributed her attributed ownership. I mean,
and that's in the tax code.
Yeah, right there. Yeah, grandchild, regardless of age, child, a minor child is attributed. Parent is attributed the ownership of a minor. But you can't. In other words, I've attributed it. Let's say you and I were cousins. I attributed you my stake in a company. Okay. You couldn't turn around and attribute that attribution that I just attributed to you to another attributor. You would be the attributor, and your spouse, for example, would be an attributee.
Are you following this, folks?
So there you go. Thanks for joining us. The show's over. Have a good
day. Okay. Well, if you look a little further down in the bill, this thing says community property laws shall be disregarded for purposes of determining ownership.
Next.
Okay.
Next.
That's in the tax code, folks.
We're falling off. We're driving the car at 90 miles an hour off the cliff into the Grand Canyon.
Oh, next. Mercy. All right. Okay. I'll just one more for this one. I'll save some for next week. Okay. But this is HR 9320. This is the Education Achievement and Opportunity Act. Again, what the heck does this have to do with the tax code? And you open it up, there is some text in this one. Sometimes there is and sometimes there's not, but there is in this one. And HR 9320 is a bill to amend the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 to allow a refundable credit against income tax for tuition expenses incurred for each qualifying child of the taxpayer in attending public or private elementary or secondary school. Are you awake?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes. Like okay. I slept through economics class in college.
Yes. So this is another refundable credit, which means that even if you have zero tax liability, you can still get this refunded to you. It's just basically money they give you.
Right.
It just says that's it.
Hey, let's just print some more. Let's just keep the ink coming. Automatic delivery of ink makes it possible.
9320 to allow refundable tax credit against income tax for tuition expenses incurred for each qualifying child of the taxpayers attending a public or private elementary or secondary. I didn't know that public school cost you tuition. I mean, it may cost extra if your kid wants to play on the football team or something like that.
Yeah, but you're paying a tax through your property taxes primarily for public school, for elementary and high school, grade school, etc.
Well,
but when you get to college, the cool thing, and this would be for any level of education, whether it be college or high school or wherever. If you decided to go to a private school, with the FAIRtax, there is no tax on expenses for education when it comes to tuition.
Yes, your tuition is not taxable. That's not considered a retail purchase. It's considered an investment. And FAIRtax does not tax investments. The FAIRtax taxes only the retail purchase of new goods and services. It's included in the price. It's not added onto the cash register like most of the sales taxes folks are familiar with now.
Right.
So it's There is no downside to the fair tax that I have found. Some people have tried to make stuff out of it. Gee, people are going to try to evade it, and you just have to laugh at those.
I'm just curious, your thoughts. I want to ask you a question. Are you finished with the Congress.gov? Because I want to
Yes, that is it. That is it for this week. We are done for this week.
I want to step off of that beach and onto another one.
Okay.
The bill is the FAIRtax HR 25 is written. It's written up. There's paper that you can actually hold in your hand and read it. How many pages? 33, 130?
It's around 130 pages. It's available on here, congress.gov. You can look it up. Just put HR 25 in the search bar instead of Internal Revenue Code, and you call that up, and you can look at the text of the bill. It's all there.
All right. So do you know of any bills introduced in Congress that are not bloodied by the time they get to passage? I know by that I mean modified, changed.
A bunch of amendments get offered and stuff like that. Yeah, I imagine that's just kind of par for the course for anything that goes through.
Yeah. So we would hope that the purest version of HR 25 makes it through and to the floor for debate. And
I would just like to see it voted out of committee and debated on the floor. It's been up there for over 20 years, and the swamp critters up there have been killing it in committee every single Congress that it's been in.
But I would hope that, as you said just a minute ago, if we are able to put the fair tax and bring it out of committee and into debate, and then Senate picks up, does their thing. We need a fair tax president. Anybody out there is interested in calling any of the perceived candidates of either party between now and 2024, it would be nice to know that they had a little bit of information on the fair tax. But I would hope that all of the things that we know about the fair tax and what you said a minute ago, that you would hope that it could be passed, and all of these things that we talk about on the show, so that when it does come time for bringing it to the vote, that it looks as much like what we know it to be capable of. As we get not
further. Every amendment that gets offered gets adopted, so you just never know. I'm sure that there will be Congress people on both sides of the aisle that might want to tweak it a little bit. Yeah. Other than the way it's originally written. But we'll see.
What I mean, though, I would hope that because changes to the perfected HR 25 right now, as it is being presented, could put us on a trajectory that would not bring about the benefits that we know the fair tax to be capable of, like what we just talked about with regard to the prebate, for example, with regard to no tax on tuition, et cetera, or savings. I would just hope that the mindset of the people that would be on the floor during that historic moment, those days where it would be debated, I would hope that they would say,
we just have to make sure that we elect people to Congress who A, understand the fair tax, and B, will get behind it and push it. A lot of them will just say, I like it, and then nothing else ever happens. We've got to get
all lip service at some point, and it appears to be just lip service now with a lot of folks that say, "Hey, we support the fair tax" when we're facing you, but then when we get up there to Washington, we're more interested in a spoonful of sugar from the big bag of sugar that's up there.
All right, we got to move on here on the FAIRtax Power Radio.
I'll get off my.
Oh yeah, you did. I don't care. That's just the way it is.
Full of really and from Thanksgiving Day.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to
already took my nap. And I set my scale back 15 pounds already, by the way.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, I say we're going to look at more craziness, and under the heading of why do people put up with a tax system that is like this? And that's again one of the things we love to do here on FAIRtax Power Radio, is expose just how crazy the income tax is, because again, we think that makes the best argument for getting rid of it and replacing it with a fair tax. But there's an article in Newsmax that came out a couple of days ago
Yeah.
written by a gentleman named Brian Pfail. I guess that's
Fail.
pronounced fail. But he says, well, the Internal Revenue Service said on Wednesday, your refund for the 2022 tax year might be smaller than in the past because there have recently been several changes to the tax code. You think?
Well, I'll be ding dang do. The
Uh-huh.
IRS said taxpayers who take the standard deduction instead of itemizing their taxes will no longer be able to deduct their charitable contributions. That was something that you were able to do up to a certain amount in previous years.
I didn't realize you could do that. I've always taken the standard deduction, use the online tax preparation software, and
Right.
I just assume that they know everything about it. But I never knew that you could take charitable contribution deductions on top of the
Above,
standard
on
deduction.
top of the
Apparently, my
standard,
charitable
not a lot.
contribution deductions might not be enough to do that.
Yeah.
But anyhow, there.
2021's American Rescue Plan lowered the reporting threshold for third-party networks that are payment processors.
Mhm.
1099-K form can now be triggered by a transaction exceeding the $600 limit. The threshold used to be $20,000 in aggregate transactions.
Yeah, now that's the biggie. I think they're trying to go after like people that have an eBay store and they do a lot of online, commerce that way. They get paid through Venmo or PayPal or some other online payment service like that. And from now, they're saying this law is telling the payment services like Venmo and PayPal that, hey, if somebody gets, in this case, $600 or more, you've got to, hey, that person is making income and send them a 1099. Now, that person could be getting, reimbursement for something. Like splitting the check at a restaurant, or so you're being reimbursed for something and somebody's using an online payment service to reimburse you. And a little farther down there it says, if that's the case and you're not really getting this income, but the payment service thinks you are, and the IRS now thinks you are because you got a 1099, the IRS can't correct that form for those who used payment processors and got a 1099 for income that wasn't really income. You'll have to call the issuer and straighten that out. Isn't that nice?
Yeah. And because there's not a box on Venmo, for example, that says this $600 or the aggregated 600 over. I mean, because it could be more than just, it could be a $200 payment and a $450 payment. Mm-hmm. And now you're at $650. So you're going to get from Venmo, you're going to get the 1099, and it might be that there is no on Venmo, for example, a button that says reimbursement. It's just income is income, and that's the fallacy in that form being used to catch those payments through those payment services.
Mm-hmm. But that's the kind of tax code that we've got here, folks. It's just absolutely nutso. And this is another one that says the IRS cannot issue returns for the earned income tax credit or the additional child tax credit until mid-February because, get this, the law requires it to hold the entire refund to detect fraud. Now, how good is the IRS at detecting fraud? I think we talked about that last week here on FAIRtax Power.
Well, those 20 meg hard drives in those old computers, the 20 meg hard drives, for those of you computer language, that's a hard drive that's probably the size of a quarter versus where we are today in gigabytes and terabytes and things like that. Why we sit here every week and talk about the lunacy that is the tax code. Mm-hmm. And so I invite you all to, as a stocking stuffer this year, consider printing out publication 17 and putting it in an envelope and sticking it in your children's and your grandparents and in your neighbor's stocking. Hey, here's a stocking stuffer. Here's a couple of pecans and publication 17 from the Internal Revenue Service. They'll go, what?
I'll give you a little preview. A part of that is in the Hall of Shame that we're going to talk about here in a few weeks.
Good.
Also, right here at the bottom of this article, the IRS has acknowledged that there were 3.7 million unprocessed individual returns that it received in 2022. That's as of November, and 900,000 unprocessed 1040X forms. Now, those are amended returns.
Yeah.
Nearly a million
around in the
amended
cafeteria.
returns haven't been in. Almost 4 million regular returns haven't been processed. And it's because we've got a system that is just incomprehensible. It's impossible to administer. It's just so complicated. The people running it don't understand it. And we have got to get rid of it and replace it with a fair tax. We just have to.
There's no doubt about it. You know, all the money that they just received or supposedly allocated for enforcement or customer service. And for those of you on radio, I'm using the air quotes when I say these things. You have the ability to check the website that they've set up called "Where's My Amended Return" for the most up-to-date processing status available. Let's just
wonder if it was one of the 30 million documents the IRS destroyed because they didn't have enough processing power to take care of it.
They just need to put a webcam in the cafeteria because that's where all of this is being stored. Oh my goodness. The IRS is processing the amended returns in the order they're received, and the current time frame can be more than 20 weeks.
There's no making this up. I mean, and there's no shortage of articles like this that show just how crazy a system the income tax system is. And you can replace it all with a simple consumption tax. You pay at the cash register when you buy things, no more tax returns, and you get you get a refund every month, not every year with the fair tax.
We need to do another show on the prebate just to show and do a side-by-side comparison of how.
Okay, I've got an old PowerPoint with some of those figures on it. We'll dig that out here in a couple of weeks and see if we can go through that again.
Because it really is important that folks understand, and I say this to our listeners and our viewers, you know, stop for a minute, you know, and don't follow the knee-jerk reaction. Oh, it's an entitlement. I didn't mean to swerve directly into the prebate, but there are so many pieces of that, like your Rubik's Cube that you just showed a minute ago. The IRS, when you move, that's it. When you turn it, it focuses, it moves things from another, it affects the other side of it.
Yes.
And you think about that and your head begins to swell up and explode and what we're dealing with in terms of the Internal Revenue Service and their backlog. Let's just say, for example, you got a refund on your 2021 that you already turned in. Let's say you turned it in on April 15th, and you're waiting on that. You're waiting on that refund from 2021. What happens when you go into 2022 and you owe money? When we start doing the taxes for 2022, are they going to say, well, we'll just not pay you your refund, and we'll pay you only back what your net refund would be after we take your tax out for 2022. You see what I'm going? You see where I'm going with that?
Yeah, I'd rather just pay my taxes at the cash register.
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff to keep up with. I'm tired of shoe boxes. You know, a lot of ladies out there listening. You have a lot of shoes. You probably have a lot of shoe boxes laying around, and you use those shoe boxes to put your receipts in, and just think about how uncluttered your life would be and how stress-free heading from now into the middle of spring next year. Just imagine what it would be like to not have all that stress.
Well, I tell you what, my head is swimming here. I think I've had about all of the income tax system I can stand for a week. So we're going to have to wrap up this edition of FAIRtax Power Radio. Appreciate you sharing these videos with your family and friends. Tell folks about FAIRtax Power Radio. We are on Facebook. I post these on Rumble as well. You've got our YouTube channel. Lots of places folks can go.
Subscribe to the FAIRtax Guys everywhere you can find us. That helps get the word out. Yeah,
that'll do it. And I say that's going to wrap this up because my head is about to go like this. And
you're on the beach, though. You're supposed to be tan, man.
Yes, yeah. Well, appreciate you listening and viewing us tonight. But we've got to run. I'm Bob Paxton.
I'm Bob Scarborough.
We're the FAIRtax Guys, reminding you the fair tax is the only truly fair tax, and once you understand it,
you'll demand it.
So tell me how it works.
You know, it's probably changed since the last time I saw it, but
The short answer would be, you want to take this one?
Oh, sure. Okay. Imagine bringing home everything you make. You don't get taxed for saving or accumulating wealth, and your boss doesn't get taxed more even if he pays you more.
Wow, now see, that's amazing.
So the end result of all that is the cost of producing products and running a business goes down, so things cost less. And on top of all that, imagine every criminal, non-citizen, and under-the-table worker also paying taxes.
That's amazing.
That's the fair tax. We tax what you consume as you consume it.